Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Rochford Files. Coming to you live from the Mile Highland City with your host that's kind of between the coast. It's Andrew Rochford. Coming back to you after a little bit of a layoff, about a week and a half or so, but can't go too long without doing a live stream, especially tonight's got some pretty important stories. We got a lot of violence to get into, and even though it's tough, touchy subjects, can't run away from it. And it's also important to cover what the North Carolina Democrats have been doing to Green Party Senate candidate Matthew Ho. And gotta go in on Rex Chapman for his liberal racism. So, a few things that could have been covered like over the weekend, but there's a point where it gets to better late than never. So now it's a good time to get started with the stream tonight, and we're probably fitting to start off with the Highland Park shooting that happened in the Chicago suburb yesterday. Let's start off with the article first. And as people make their way in, please like and subscribe, share. Please find new people to share it to, as that'll be one of the ways to help this channel grow, is to introduce this content to new people. So let's just go over some of the basic details from this. A gunman opened fire on a crowd gathered for an Independence Day parade outside of Chicago, killing at least 6 people and wounding 36 in the latest mass shooting in the United States. And there's now figures that say it's 7 and 47. Just so to make it more worse, what happened? A shooter opened fire on a crowd gathered to watch an Independence Day parade in the Chicago suburb of Highland Park at 10:15 a.m. Monday, sending revelers fleeing in terror, authorities said. The gunman apparently used a high-powered rifle to fire dozens of rounds from a perch atop a commercial building where he was very difficult to see, said Highland Park Police Commander Chris O'Neill. 6 people were killed in the shooting, with at least 36 others wounded. Several of the victims died at the scene, and the targets appear to be random. According to Lake County Major Crime Task Force spokesman Christopher Covelli, the North Shore University Health Center received 26 patients after the attack, with all but one suffering from gunshot wounds, according to Dr. Brigham Temple, medical director of emergency preparedness. He estimated at least 4 of those treated at the hospital were children. In the wake of the attack, lawn chairs, strollers, and bags of snacks were littered the crime scene, where hours earlier families had staked out prime viewing places to watch the festivities. A massive manhunt followed the attack, with police releasing a photo of a person of interest and his Honda Fit car. They warned he was likely armed and dangerous. A rifle recovered at the scene, although details of the weapon were not immediately released. So I think that right there is a good starting point with the basic details of what happened. And now it's a good moment to transition. In a moment, we'll go more into who this shooter is. But look, the first thing I thought about when I saw a video of the people running from the gunshots was, this is America. I mean, think about it. What is more American than a mass shooting on the 4th of July? Yeah, that's right. 4th of July mass shooting in a country where both parties, both conservative parties, by the way, participate in their forms of patriotism, where one side is staunchly anti gun control, then the other side is extremely gun control. But what both those sides often fail to get is what causes this gun violence to happen. And we're about to show you more about this Robert Crimo, the shooter from yesterday. And this article will show you that from the Daily Mail. And as you can see in this photo, this is him dressed up as Waldo. And this is a drawing. This right here is a drawing of himself shooting people online, a disturbing clip of himself throwing bullets on the floor of a classroom wall, wearing armor, and what appears to be a joke about school shootings. Crimo had a Discord server where he would chat with friends and fans, and his most recent post was a picture of Bud Dwyer, the Pennsylvania state treasurer who took his own life on live TV in the 1980s. She captioned, "I wish politicians still gave speeches like this." And another thing that we learned is he was also a rapper. And for the record, I am not going to play the clip, the songs. If you want to go check it out, go on Rockfin, and because Steve Poikonen and Craig Pasta Jardula played the couple of his tracks on Anarchy in the Morning. But since I got wiped off YouTube and I'm on YouTube, that may not uh, be the safest way to go. And this shows that he was known to law enforcement, but is not yet known if this was due to disturbing content he shared online or if he committed other crimes. So this, once again, is the abject failure of this supposed law enforcement system. I mean, look, going back to this Buffalo shooting that happened a few weeks ago, both the police and the FBI had a chance to take some form of action to prevent that. Oh yeah. Hi, Kelly. I thought about saying that at the beginning of the show. Feliz Cinco de Julio to you as well. Hopefully that work goes smoothly for you. But back to the point here. And it's the fact that it's sad how many people aren't willing to uh, consider the idea of abolishing the FBI. If they, if their purpose is to just ignore shit and let these people just go through and perform these heinous acts of violence, then what is the point of the keeping those institutions in place? And that's a question that not enough people are thinking about in a serious way. And there's been countless times where following one of these shootings, it gets revealed somehow, some way, that the FBI was aware of it, or the local police were aware of it. But how many times do they truly prevent it? Never. And just saying almost never is far too generous. Because even the times where they, I can only think of one time where they temporarily um, prevented one shooting, but then that person eventually still acted on it at a later date. And I think that was the shooting that followed the Buffalo grocery store, I think, if I remember correctly on that. And we'll scroll down a bit more past these photos. And this is where the annoying part comes of the general discourse that takes place with these these mass shootings. As you can see here, he's in his this Crimo's in his uh, Trump in his Waldo get up in it. The caption reads, Crimo was pictured attending a Trump rally while he dressed as Where's Waldo? Another picture has emerged showing the suspect wrapped in a Trump flag, where this is actually a pretty messy instance because considering the annoying discourse of this turns so often into liberals. See, that shooter was on your side, conservatives. Then, when the shooter is revealed to be your standard liberal, then conservatives point the finger right back at the liberals, blaming their side for it. And once again, just like how both liberals and conservatives get the issue of guns wrong because neither of them think about the police state, for one, and demilitarizing the police, they also get the blame game wrong too. They just like to blame, make it assigned based on their flawed political ideologies when they're not getting to the root of the issue. I mean, some conservatives will acknowledge one fair point with not enough focus being done with mental health. And from the left, that's only a small part of the puzzle when so often that we see these instances happen because many of these mass shooters, you can look at their background and it's pretty clear that they're somewhere along the line, their basic needs were not being met, and in a large part of a failure due to capitalism. and it still goes against the conventional logic of the typical liberal and conservative, because they aren't willing to think about illogical solutions to problems like these, much in the same way that making sure people's reallocating funds from the police in order to help people get their basic needs met would do far more to solve crime than continuously giving the police more weapons and trying to increase their massive numbers in the force. Because once again, there were already a lot of police around when this happened, and they did not adequately handle this situation right. As you can see right here, look, I'm about to play a video for y'all shortly, showing y'all how the police respond, how there was a video of a police officer trying to engage with crime. And it's not good for someone is supposed whose job is supposed to be to take acts of violence seriously. As you can see, a more recent photo of him, and I guess he even had an IMDb page that describes him as being a middle child of three who grew up in an Italian-American family in Highland Park, Illinois. The suspect's ties to the community go back as far as his grandfather, Robert Crimo, who was born in Highland Park in 1929. Robert Crimo died in 2018. His obituary names the suspect's parents as Bob Jr. and a niece. Most of the family mentioned in the tribute live in the Highland Park area. The family lives along Pleasant Avenue in Highwood, just north of Highland Park. Their home is located across the street from Oak Terrace Elementary School. Honestly, those type of details are a bit surprising to include. That's the fact that it's like doxing. There's a photo of his father. Is there anything else? And this is another example of the typical partisan cheap shot that you see here. There's his father's uh, inactive Twitter profile, and it says, "Protect the second." And a like of his, "Protect the Second Amendment like your life depends on it. Retweet if you agree." Yes, so often, Nairi, this is what happens. It's created within the United States. Yeah, I don't like. Yeah, this is unusual as well, even though it did reveal lots about who was a lot of the background, but you usually don't see uh, the white mass shooters get their family revealed in the process. And this is a bit of a different way of going about it. But once again, this shows the one of those examples of the partisan shots that you'll see is because we are not at the right point to seriously to have real gun control. The police state is far too powerful, and we got liberals out here who want to make us completely defenseless. A major problem right there is that liberals, as Nick Cruz of Revolutionary Blackout Network says, they're willing to disarm the proletariat. When at this point, people as a whole should be armed or at least supportive of the working class being armed. But let's shift to that video of how that officer started to engage with this shooter. Let's see, where's that at? Yeah, I think this is it. Okay, there we. Sometimes got so many tabs up that I lose track of the one that I want. But this is it right here. Please put
It's
your
a shooter.
hands up.
Yeah.
This once again is the example of the kid gloves that officers apply towards these mass shooters.
Oh shit.
Please stop right now. The hypocrisy, the inconsistency of the police state in full force right there. They showed they were full on capable of detaining someone so often without firing a single shot. While, as you'll see in other instances, with the way that they apply policing unequally, that they feel like with other people, like black people, that the only way they can approach them is armed and ready to shoot. But that wasn't the only one that happened last night. That one was in the morning, but there was another little shooting that happened in Philadelphia last night. And I know that how the right is going to use that one. But this little video from Fox 29 Philadelphia is going to have some cringe in that. Just to let y'all know before I play that.
And we begin at 11 o'clock with breaking news. Officers shot near the Ben Franklin Parkway tonight, where people were gathering for the concert and fireworks show at the Wawa Welcome America event. Dave Kinchin at the scene now. It is still somewhat chaotic, but a lot of the people there have dispersed.
Yeah, that's exactly right. A lot of people have dispersed. Let me just step out of the way and give you a scene center of what's happening right now. Police working this area. We saw SWAT teams really working the ground, trying to find any information they can as they search for the shooter here. Police tell us they don't have any information or much information right now in terms of whether they're looking for one shooter or two. Here's what we know. 2 police officers were shot. One is a Philadelphia Police Highway Patrol officer who was shot in the head, grazed by a bullet to the head in stable condition. The other is an officer from Montgomery County's bomb unit, and we're told that that officer was shot in the shoulder, and that officer is also in stable condition. All of this took place right as the fireworks were going off. We're told by sources the shooting happened somewhere behind the Ferris wheel, kind of a landmark of this whole Party on the Parkway festival. The concerts just wrapped up. Ava Max was on, then Jason Derulo was on, and the concerts wrapped up. The fireworks were going on, and then all of a sudden people start running, and I mean running past our news truck. We were trying to figure out what was going on. We saw police rushing where, as the heroes they are, rushing into the chaos, the same direction that people are running from, and that's when we saw the police TAC-air chopper hit the air, shine that spotlight down, moving as quickly and professionally as they always do, and we...
Jesus, can you choke on that boot any fucking harder, man? I'm surprised that you could even speak a coherent sentence with how deep those police boots are in your mouth, man. If there's anything that Uvalde shooting should have shown you is what that propaganda is just flat out fucking untrue. Hey, what's up, WCSN, man? Good to see you're here tonight.
Find out confirmed 2 officers in stable condition after being shot during the 4th of July celebrations down here. Now, the Montgomery County officer from the bomb unit in Montgomery County was part of this added security layer. So there's officers who aren't from Philadelphia, and obviously there's federal partners, so FBI and federal law enforcement working with police on this. They do a great job of sharing information. I know that just from my time in the criminal justice and public safety unit when I worked for City Hall. Really incredible to see.
Oh, that explains why this guy's a propagandist for the state. He used to work in it. His work was connected to it.
Especially as they watch all of the cameras in the city that feed into the Delaware Valley Intelligence Center. So they're trying to get visuals. They're trying to get any intel they can on who fired these shots. Police tell me they don't know if they're looking for one person or two. We do know that we saw, just teams. In fact, I haven't seen that many SWAT teams moving together as one unit, walking around a particular area in a chaotic area since I covered the Baltimore riots, to be perfectly honest. That's the last time I saw that, although, of course, we had the riots in 20.
I'm going to guess this guy also was given the pushing the propaganda narrative for those as well.
20 here in Philadelphia, too. But what we can tell you, 2 officers shot in stable condition, one with a grazed wound to the head, a Philadelphia Police Highway Patrol officer, the other a Montgomery County bomb unit officer shot in the shoulder. Again, both stable. We're trying to figure out when there may be some sort of a press conference on all of this. But at this scene, traffic, it looks like it's moving through a little bit. It's still hectic, not quite as hectic. Most people seem to be gone from the area. We just hear the police choppers and also occasionally the whoop of a siren. But SWAT looking for... we don't know where the shooter is. They don't know. That's the thing. Police tell us they don't know where this person is. They don't know if it's one shooter or two, but a very, very terrifying situation. The fireworks seem to have wrapped up early. Fireworks still going as people were running for their lives. Just absolute pandemonium here. I'll step back in and we'll send it right back to you. I know Chris has got some more information. But
Yes. Yipper, good see you in. And I'll Gotta leave it on that face as well for a bit, just so everyone here can see the face of a deep throating bootlicker like him. So this story right here, we know how the right is going to spin this. They're going to use this as an argument that there's not enough police out there. And the fact, and they're going to go off on the typical anti-defunding tyrant. Guess what? The liberals are also going to be sympathetic to this as well, and they're going to follow suit. Well, here's what I'm going to say. Guess what, police? You know how these mass shootings, how smart people who can see outside of the partisan game can understand that many of these instances happen due to people falling through the cracks of their basic needs not being met. Guess what? Those shooters can also affect you, officers. And the system that you're part of and working in is going to be counterproductive to ever getting anywhere close to the real solution, because you're this current police state is antithetical to any type of progress that could be made to curb gun violence in the United States, because the police are a system designed to uphold and enforce capitalism. And this is America because capitalism is one of the biggest causes that lead people to be violent in the United States. And there will still be a few people that will have issues under socialism or communism, but it'll be significantly less in comparison. And if you think that the police are going to help solve this problem, whether you're someone who's a part of that workforce, you're complicit in making sure that we don't get to the point where we can strive towards a real solution. And and we have honestly got things that fed both liberals and conservatives just one day yesterday. But we'll play a couple sound bites of how Democrat politicians are speaking for these mass shootings from yesterday. So here's a little thread from Caitlin Johnstone, very good anti-imperialist voice in Australia. And let's get right down to this video of what Tammy Duckworth had to say.
So today I will go home and hug my babies a little tighter in gratefulness that they are safe. But I think about the babies and the families who lost moms and dads and grandparents today. And we must do more. I just listened to the sound of that gunfire from one of the videos that was captured. And let me tell you that the last time I heard a weapon with that capacity firing that rapidly on the 4th of July was Iraq. It was not the United States of America. We can, and we should, and we will do better. So today
Now, the reason why it's important to touch on this is because there are Democrats who are absolutely fine with gunshots, drones, firing in Iraq, Libya, Syria, Palestine, Somalia, among many of the countries where the United States is actively in war, imperialism, and that's where the liberal comfort comes into play. Because, and the hypocrisy from those like Tammy Duckworth, who, by the way, I believe is a former veteran, so of course someone like her is not going to make that connection about the problem with gun violence abroad as well. And you just know when she says that, she's perfectly fine with the violence that happens in other countries at the hands of the US military. And on the other hand, it's pretty sick that we have to accept that. But as I often say before, it's important to be consistent on issues domestically and abroad. Because when it comes down to it, if you're not consistent worldwide, then we're not going to make the progress on either front. WCSN with, pretty sure there's a bootlicking clause throughout the mainstream journalism code. I think it's called bootlicking. Yeah, there's a lot of you gotta love the bots that pop up on the Twitters. I mean, I remember during one of Biden's tweets, one bot said, Biden is one of the best presidents we have right now. And, which clearly implied that he wasn't the only president right at this time. I got tempted to quote tweet that and be like, who are the other presidents right now? But there's one more thing that we got going on liberals for. So one of the victims, posted on Twitter yesterday of what happened to her. Ken Klippenstein, a lot of flaws with him, but he did do a good screenshot here. So let's start with the victim. I can't fucking believe I was in the middle of a mass shooting. I felt safe at this parade for 18 years, and today I got hit with a bullet, and nothing will change in America. This is ridiculous. Very much a thought that many of us would have, even witnessing it from afar. Get a load of this shit, shall we? This is a tweet from Anne Brenoff. I am sorry this happened to you and to everyone else there. It's awful, and these shootings just keep coming at us. Please register to vote if you haven't already. Tell your friends too. Your generation is our last hope. I forgot to switch. There's the original tweet, more visible. And what's sickening here is this is the textbook liberal tone deafness. Yet this woman would probably be among one of the first liberals to jump on a conservative who is tone deaf, who we know is tone deaf. But in this situation, the awareness is a zero. And it just goes to show you how disconnected that liberals are from being just basic sympathy. Imagine being told. Would you have told a family, a black family that just lost someone close to them due to police violence? Would you be telling Jayland Walker's family to go vote? Would you be telling George Floyd's family to go vote? Elijah McClain's family? Trayvon Martin? Breonna Taylor? No. But this is the major issue with liberals these days. They think that the only way to change anything is through their vote. And when it comes down to it, it's like bringing a knife to a gunfight. In fact, even worse. That's even more like bringing a foam noodle to it instead. Compared to the problems that we face in society right now and how easy it is for this ruling class to ignore us, pull the bait and switch when they get our votes. I mean, look at Biden. Anything slightly left that he promised, he abandoned. Any progressive who was supposed to challenge him and push him left has been playing some of the strongest defense for him in this near year and a half since he's taken office. And we still want to talk vote. And it deserves the same tone that Allen Iverson said in his We Talk in Practice press conference clip. And that's the exact way that we should be responding whenever these fucking tone-deaf liberals come out someone with voting. A person who I imagine got very angry when she saw that response. And what made it worse was the amount of likes that shit got. I don't get mad at politicizing shootings because if we were taking the right action, Columbine would have been one of the last ones. But when they do make that, don't politicize the shooting, it's just a shield to prevent us from trying to take real action. And that's not within the typical mainstream discourse. And that's just what happened here. Oh, one last thing before we continue on. We got to talk this patriotism. bullshit for a moment. This comes from the Occupy Democrats account. The most patriotic thing you can do is refuse to vote Republican. And when you look through these quote tweets, you're going to overwhelmingly see shitlibs in agreement with that statement. But that's not patriotism. It's nationalism. It doesn't matter whether it's the Republicans' brand or the Democrats' brand. They both push nationalism. And this right here is the example of the blue nationalism that we've got. The reason why it is nationalism, because when it all comes down to it, they are pretty much in damn near agreement when it comes to the foreign policy that gets enacted. Look at Russia, Ukraine. I mean, there's a few people on the right who are doing the little gotchas against the Democrats, but ultimately, they're not serious about opposing that bullshit proxy war. Then you have also can look back to Israel, Palestine. They're both overwhelmingly pro-Israel. Then Cuba, they both believe Cuba is under dictatorship. Same with Venezuela, Nicaragua too. That's pretty much it, Kelly. And that's why our vote is worth as little as ever. And it takes a lot of luck just to get a progressive here and there through. And there's still reformist left who still want us to waste a shit ton of money and energy just to get one, maybe two future squad members across the finish line just so they can sell out within minutes once they start in Congress the next new session. Tell me the logic of that being really worth it. Because it's not. And guess what? What real patriotism would be right at this time is people who reject this duopoly and reject it strongly and vehemently. People who are independent, who are able to free themselves from this propaganda, are people that I would consider to be far more patriotic, especially anti-imperialist, than someone who believes in just the red Kool-Aid or the blue Kool-Aid. And even though I'm not really yeah, that's the bullshit propaganda for you right there, WCSN. According to both Fox News and MSNBC-IA, Biden is progressive and somehow Obama. I know, right? The thing is, even though I'm not really about this patriotic socialism that you have with like a small section of the left, like Jackson Hinkle, Caleb Maupin, Hawes. But when you start to get into which one is more patriotic between Democrats or Republicans, this is a moment where they actually can be far more compelling. And that's as someone who isn't really about that patriotic socialism whatsoever. But the thing is, there's some people who are also very much against them, where it's kind of dumb because it also gets you to where there's still plenty of issues that you could work with them on, especially since they're mostly right on foreign policy. Even they're a bit flawed on certain social issues, so to speak, but there's still plenty of things that you could work with certain patriotic socialists on. Even though I still believe it's kind of a contradictory term. Now it's time to shift over to the last part of this whole "This is America" type thing, and it's going to go into the shooting of Jayland Walker last week in Akron, Ohio. And we got a good Rising video to go to for that.
Last year alone, police shot and killed 1,055 people. That's just counting who they shoot and kill and who they actually report as homicides, meaning George Floyd, Eric Garner, Elijah McClain, anybody police killed some other way but a gun, anybody like Ronald Green, whose murder they initially reported as a car accident, only for video footage of them killing him to emerge years later, they're not reflected in those numbers at all. It also doesn't account for people like Jacob Blake, who the police shot 14 times and paralyzed, but he survived. It doesn't account for any police brutality beneath death. It's staggering. Police quite literally kill somebody every day in America. Mainstream media just doesn't bother to report on it, unless they have a video as heartbreaking as George Floyd's, or as absolutely sickening as the body cam footage that was just released in the murder of Jayland Walker. Last week, in Akron, Ohio, police shot 25-year-old Jayland Walker 60 times and killed him after they tried to stop him for traffic infractions. Police claimed that Jayland did not stop and instead sped away, at which point the officers engaged in a high-speed chase where they claimed they believed he fired a single shot from the driver's window. When he stopped the car and got out, officers say they tased him, but he continued to run away from them. So they decided, in order to pursue this boy for a traffic stop, they would shoot him to death. 8 officers fired more than 100 shots at him. Think about that. They believe someone committed a traffic infraction. So that to them was worth a high-speed chase that would risk the lives of anybody on the road, and to then just need to get him so bad for these traffic infractions. They tased him and they shot him 100 times. 60 of those bullets hit him. That is a murder. They made an executive decision to kill him. You don't shoot someone 100 times thinking they'll survive. They literally riddled him with bullets for a traffic stop. They continued shooting even as his body lay lifeless on the ground, and then they handcuffed his dead body. Much like in May of this year, when Kansas City police told Leona Hale, a 26-year-old pregnant Black woman, to get on the ground in a parking lot, and she told them she couldn't because she was pregnant. So they shot that pregnant woman 12 times and handcuffed her as she lay bleeding on the ground. She fortunately survived the shooting, unlike 21-year-old Drayshawn Reed, who in 2020, Indianapolis police shot 13 times and killed while on Facebook live stream, then stood over his dead body and said, "That's gonna be a closed casket, homie," before handcuffing his dead body. For something so cruel, so unnecessary, and so unlawful, do you know what the consequences are? 8 officers murdered a boy for a traffic stop, and they are on paid administrative leave. Because this is routine. And in keeping with this routine, as is always the case when a Black person is killed by the police, people who remain invested in a police state rush to vilify the victim and their actions. So in order to justify another police killing, let's discuss the law. In a case called Graham versus Connor, the court held that the question of whether an officer used excessive force requires careful attention to the facts and circumstances of the particular case, including the severity of the crime at issue, whether the suspect poses an immediate threat to the safety of the officers or others. The police weren't stopping Jayland for a violent felony, or a felony at all. They weren't stopping him for a misdemeanor. In fact, they weren't even stopping him for a crime. They were doing a traffic stop for traffic infractions. There is a world where traffic stops don't warrant police to go on high-speed chases, where it doesn't warrant police to tase people, to shoot people, to kill people. And it's this one. It's this world. Did you know that in most states in America, police can't arrest adults for misdemeanor offenses without a warrant if they didn't witness the person committing the crime? Why, in that world, would it then be logical, sensible, lawful, or in keeping with a democracy that police be allowed to go on high-speed chases and tase and shoot people for traffic infractions? Why in that world does it even make sense that armed police officers be conducting traffic stops at all, especially when they repeatedly show us that they can't stop murdering people to do it? Do you know what would have happened if police had killed someone while chasing after Jayland? They would have charged Jayland with felony murder. Felony murder is a tool police regularly use to charge the people they were trying to arrest for the deaths of anyone the police recklessly killed while pursuing them. Felony murder is how Jagger Freeman was convicted of murder after the police shot and killed their own fellow detective while trying to arrest him for a robbery. Felony murder is why a 15-year-old Lakeith Smith was sentenced to 65 years in prison when he committed robbery with his friend and the police shot and killed his friend. Think about this. Every year, we literally watch videos of police killing people. And in spite of our own eyes, they tell us it's not murder and they shouldn't be charged. But they'll gladly charge other people for the same murders they say weren't murders if we think for 1 second to hold them to the laws the rest of us are held to. To those who will say he shouldn't have run away from the police, I implore you to ask yourselves why a black man in America might run from the police. To ask yourselves why a black man in America might think a routine traffic stop could end his life. While you ponder it, I'd ask that you think of Philando Castile, Manuel Ellis, Maurice Gordon, Dijon Kizzee, or any of the countless black people who've met the same fate. To those who say he was armed, first, he was unarmed at the time police shot and killed him. He was running away with his back turned. A gun was retrieved from his car. Second, and most importantly, you need to decide once and for all whether you believe in the Second Amendment or you believe only that white people have Second Amendment rights. You cannot be the same people decrying government overreach, civil liberties, constitutional rights, and everything in between at the slightest suggestion that guns get more regulation to prevent mass shootings that have been perpetuated by young white men all over this country, to prevent children from being continuously murdered in schools. You cannot be the same people marching with your guns, taking photos like this with your guns, now insisting for the umpteenth time that any indication that a black person has a gun means police are justified in extrajudicial murders, even when they're legally owned, like they did to Philando Castile and Amir Locke. Why is it okay for police to kill black people if they even suggest that they think they might have maybe seen a gun? But yesterday, Robert Bobby Crimo, a white man, shot at least 30 people at a 4th of July parade yesterday, killing at least 6. And the police took him in without firing a single shot. And he also fled the police, armed with his weapons, after having killed people. Why are police so often able to take in even white mass shooters without harming a hair on their head? But 12-year-old Tamir Rice gets shot within seconds for having a toy gun. John Crawford gets shot and killed inside a Walmart for picking up an air rifle being sold at the store off the shelf. The city of Akron, like cities all over this country, have already shelled out millions and millions of taxpayer dollars on police brutality settlements because qualified immunity continues to protect police from any semblance of accountability while we continue to foot the bill. The city of Akron, like cities all over this country, responded to the police killing yet another black person by sending out militarized police into the streets to beat and arrest anyone who dare protest their continued killings. That, my friends, is a police state, and it's not making any of us safer.
Well, look, I have a lot of agreement with what you said. Qualified immunity must be gotten rid of. It's terrible.
All right, now that we've gotten through that, and I must say that was the first time I've really seen Olayemi Olurin before, and I would definitely like to see more of her on Rising. A very good statement from her. That was the first time I was ever familiar with her, but this just goes to show you the inconsistency of the police state in motion. We see a white mass shooter get handled with fucking kid gloves. And then, if you see more of the video, you'll notice when a few cops try to approach the vehicle of Jayland Walker, they've all got their guns held up. And when I showed that video earlier, the cops trying to approach Robert Crimo, they still had their arms down. And when you see, when you can look through your rear view mirror, and you just see a few officers holding their gun up right at you, and knowing, and being a black man in America, and knowing what often happens when you see a gang of police officers approach you, how can you not understand the first instinct to run? Because we've seen plenty of other instances where they've tried to do everything that police ask, and they still get shot. And people want to talk about how slavery's over, when that was a mob lynching. That was more than just a murder that happened to Jayland Walker. 13th Amendment was like a evolved form of slavery, so it hasn't really ended. And that was like a moment of the slave forces going after someone they felt was out of line. Absolutely sickening. More than 90 shots total got fired, and over 60 of those connected. And there's people out there who are absolutely fucking fine with the fact that the police state could be judge, jury, and executioner. And you've got conservatives who justify death just for slightly not completely following orders. And this goes into the whole bullshit character assassination argument that they like to use for whenever black men get shot by police. They do it with George Floyd, and the media always likes to try to amplify any type of demons that black men could have following their deaths. And they still come up with character assassinations, even with black people who haven't done anything wrong. I mean, we know how nice of a person Elijah McClain was. So the only thing they could ding him on was the fact that he was anemic and wearing a hoodie at night in the summer. And from all intents and purposes, this next video I'm going to play a TikTok is going to show you that you couldn't ding Jayland Walker's character either.
If you see this, I need you to stop scrolling. This is Jayland Walker, a 25-year-old black man from Akron, Ohio, that was riddled with over 60 bullets from the Akron Police Department. It's been reported that 8 officers fired over 90 rounds at Jayland. This is a picture of the crime scene, and all of those are evidence tags. That's right, for the shell casings. According to the details that are out right now, the Akron Police Department attempted to pull Jayland over, and a vehicle chase ensued. The police chief confirmed that the officers did not see any weapons, but they claim to have heard a gunshot or multiple gunshots during the police chase. Jayland then pulls his car into a parking lot and jumps out of the car with the vehicle still moving. And from what it sounds like, he was running away when he was shot, and he was unarmed at the time of the shooting. And after the Akron Police Department riddled him with over 60 bullets, they handcuffed him. And he remained handcuffed until the medical examiner arrived. Jayland was shot in the face, the abdomen, and the upper legs, according to the report. A weapon was recovered in his vehicle that he had already ditched. Please hear me when I say this. There is nothing short of a fucking war zone that warrants 90 rounds being shot at someone. There was no civilian scenario that would be warranted unless that person is actively pointing an automatic weapon at you, not a kid that ditched his car and is running away. According to reports, the body cam footage is supposed to be released, I think, by Sunday, so I'm sure more details will come out, but we need to be sharing this now to get the word out there because this is really, really messed up. And what's even more messed up is less than 30 days ago, Jayland became a widow because his wife died. So his family is now grieving the loss of both his wife and him. And I am just devastated because this happened in my hometown. All 8 of these officers need to be held accountable. Nothing warrants this kind of firepower outside of a war zone.
And that right there is one of the main issues with the police state. The inconsistency, given how they treated that mass shooter yesterday in Highland Park, then this one here too. The fact that the first instinct is to always shoot when it's a black person. But yeah, this. Do you really want a policing system that can just be this so sick and inequity of force? Because every one of these stories involving the police state further justifies abolition in my eyes. I couldn't speak to it better than like what RBN did earlier in their live stream earlier this afternoon. But let's switch over. Now it's time to talk about what the North Carolina Democratic Party has done to Matthew Hoh, the Green Party Senate candidate. So, got a couple good videos to go along with that. So, Matthew Hoh has started to make the rounds on independent media. So let's start with this tweet here. The North Carolina State Board of Elections just voted 3-2 to not certify the Green Party ballot access petition. We needed 13,865 signatures, and the North Carolina Green Party submitted 15,953 verified signatures. We did everything required, and they just said no. Is this what democracy looks like? And that's the first part of it right there. The Democrats will go to the fullest length to make sure it's an anti-democratic election. But let's go to one of those videos, shall we? So in this video right here, you're going to see at this North Carolina State Board of Election official meeting where Chairman Sir Costa, a Democrat, refuses to answer North Carolina Green Party lawyer Oliver Hall's question if there's any reason to not certify the North Carolina's 15,953 signatures, then shuts down our lawyer and mutes him. So let's give that a listen.
I would like to, and I'm hopeful that we can get to the bottom of this, and it would be my desire, personal desire, to see this new party on the ballot. But given what's in front of us today, I can't in good conscience vote to certify today. So I would like to wait, give our staff enough time to go through this process. If there's a motion to vote on this today, I will be voting no.
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yeah, Mr. Hall, let's make it brief though, please.
Well, thank you. Is there any question as to the validity of the 15,953 signatures that have been validated by state and county boards of elections?
Mr. Hall, I don't want to get into the details of a criminal investigation, but I have questions sufficient in number to be not willing to vote for certification today.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I asked the question because the board is effectively presuming that there is some question as to the validity of those signatures by delaying the certification and possibly rejecting the certification of the Green Party petitions. And if there is some presumption here that is operative, the presumption ought to be that validated signatures are valid, unless there is some basis for considering them invalid or at least subject to further investigation. So again, the question is there any basis for considering or questioning the validity of any one of those 15,953 validated signatures?
And I will thank you for your comments to the board. I will stand by my earlier assertion, and I will ask any other board members if they have questions.
Mr. Chairman, you have not answered the question. You are now
Mr. Hall, you're out of order, sir. Go ahead and mute Mr. Hall. I'll ask the board members if they have any other questions for staff.
Ah, look at that. Dodging that this happened so soon, yet so many liberals were cheering on the fact that the Green Party got kicked off of those few states that you referenced to right there, WCSN. Suffrage pitch. Whoa. But this is... Imagine how corrupt just at the local level that trying to just break in with the third party is when You've got dipshits who are pretty much going to dodge and duck all the way through and still not allow you to clear the hurdles when you thought you've already cleared them. But this honestly gets worse. Get a load of this phone call that some petition signer got.
To confirm whether or not I signed a petition. Mass, who are you calling with? What organization? Oh, is this the Green Party?
Yes.
You're with the Green Party?
Yes, and we have you listed as one to get the candidates of North Carolina ballot, and you cite that.
So you were calling as a representative of the Green Party?
As a volunteer, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I did sign it.
Okay, and would you say you strongly support it or just somewhat support it?
I mean, I don't think I'd sign something unless I strongly support it.
Okay, well, thank you for confirming animal participation in elections is important. If the Green Party's on the ballot, it will take votes away from Democrats and give Republicans a huge advantage in North Carolina in 2022 2024. There's far too much at stake to let this happen. Are you interested in asking to have any legal from this decision, or will you answer it?
I'm confused. So if you're with the Green Party, why are you asking to remove? Are you? I'm sorry.
Yes, I totally agree.
Oh. But this goes back to the Democrats' fear game. They want to fearmonger you against the idea of ever voting for a third party. And when someone like Matthew Ho, who actually stands for something good, of course, Democrats are going to come in and figure out a way to block out anything further to their left. Very much so. Extremely terrible liars, Kelly. And what makes this worse is even if everyone who would vote like for a left-wing third party committed their votes to Democrats, which would be illogical given the past history that has shown us, they would not follow through on it. Given the supermajority, they figure out a way to have that rotating villain in place to prevent like something like Roe versus Wade from getting back to done. But I saw polling earlier today, by the way, in where it's not even one of the most important issues. So let me bring up that polling real quick. Just goes to show you how if Democrats think that they can just block off third-party candidates like Matthew Ho from the ballot, not only that, but I'm sure that they're going to try to pull that in other places too. But look, shout out to Aaron Mate for bringing this to my attention. Damn, the Biden and Democrats' top two concerns, January 6th and Ukraine proxy war, don't even register. Time for another $40 billion and more primetime hearings. But this polling should be very telling if the fact that Democrats think they can somehow use the Roe versus Wade as a gravy train to make sure that they can even just maintain the same tiebreaker majority that they've got now. 33% inflation, 15% gas prices, 9% economy, 6% bills and groceries. That alone is 63% to only 5% for the abortion. And you know what that means? It means that there's a lot of people right now who are pretending to be for the current thing, who aren't necessarily committed to the idea of voting blue. But when it comes down to it, what's clear is these 4 issues above it are going to be the ones they ultimately prioritize more than trying to vote for a pro-choice candidate who is not going to try to do anything to help ease their wallet. And guess what? Matthew Ho, on his platform, he was someone who was trying to address these issues above as well. And this is why we are in an extremely uphill battle electoral. Even if we make our third-party votes with minimal investment, they're still going to make it very hard in certain states just to give people the chance to vote for these candidates. Oh yeah, WCSN, that's a good point as well. How many of these people Dems are telling to be able to vote when Dem Secretary of State are purging their registrations? I think, didn't that happen in like Wisconsin or something like that? Even though they're... But the thing is, when Democrats are in this moment becoming blatantly more anti-democracy than Republicans. I mean, people all the time. I mean, liberals obviously point out the gerrymandering and voting suppression of Republicans, but they're silent when it comes to the party that they're willing to vote for no matter what does the same. And I do hope that something positive comes of it from Matthew Ho's campaign as he tries to challenge the North Carolina Democrat Commission that wouldn't allow that to go through. Shout out to the platforms that have tried to boost Matthew Ho, like Jimmy Dore, James Fauntleroy. I believe Savvy Sabs has also had him on even before earlier on in his campaign. But I think now it's time to go into something that happened last week with Rex Chapman. He is a former NBA player. He is a big Twitter account. Extremely shitlib, by the way. And he often goes more viral on stuff that was originally posted by someone else. So now it's time to tackle in the liberal racism that happens. And yes, and this isn't going to fit the anti-white narrative that you thought, patriotic warrior, when you see me going on Rex Chapman for this segment. So let's start here. Other tab of Rex. So you see here this first tweet from him. This time, Justice Clarence Thomas attended the graduation event of Kristen Dom's students along with the late Justice Antonin Scalia's son. Then he decides to point out not another person of color in the picture. Then he says, such a champion, LOL. I think the thing I think is most funny is that these white kids and their parents view this as their entry into Black America. Then he says, Clarence Thomas was last 20 to 30 seconds in an NBA locker. Next, why have you never seen Clarence Thomas at an NBA game in ever? Major stereotyping here by Rex Chapman, because there's this assumption that Black people cannot be different, have different interests. Then he mentions Bill Clinton used to come to our games and land over with the bullets. Clarence Thomas, never. And this is this is your brain when you think you're a liberal who has gotten some form of pass to talk shit on Black conservatives like this. And there is a way to disagree. But when you put in your form of racism into the process, like old Rex did right here, then that's problematic. And you know that many people across the political spectrum are taking notice of this. You think the left notices it the same way as well, where they get mad when the Black person is not following their brand of liberalism? So a ton of stereotyping done right there. Now we'll switch over to the next tab. Then he shares a video here of Hillary Clinton on CBS talking about the abortion ruling. Not going to play that. Mitch McConnell has had Clarence Thomas doing his bidding for years now. Mitch has been a senator of Kentucky since I was a high school junior, 16 years old. I'm 54 now. Look at Daniel Cameron. He's next in Mitch's role to succeed Clarence Thomas. And then look at this. And more examples of what happens when white liberals think they're suddenly absolved from being racist. And the point right there is, you're not. And yes, you can be. There are other non-white people in this white supremacist driven political system that uphold and push it in the same way. But when it comes to opposing a Clarence Thomas, oppose him on what he stands for, which is being. The recent thing was overturning Roe versus Wade, the danger of him leaving contraception up to the states. But when you go along the line of thinking it's okay to use racism as a flex on him, then that's definitely wrong. And this goes back to the point about how black people can have issues with racism from white people regardless of where they stand in the political spectrum. But more commonly, you actually see liberals habitually cross that line more. And the sad part is they think it's okay because they're supposedly doing it in the name of not being racist. But the point is, Rex did it. He broke out several of the stereotyping cards from his deck. And it was supposed to be okay just because Clarence Thomas is a conservative. But those are not going to win you the points that you would need, regardless of where you are, on the political spectrum in order to coalesce and organize and mobilize against a conservative duopoly who is going to, in their damnedest, make sure to continuously make conditions worse on us. So thanks to all of y'all for coming out tonight for the Rochford Files. Shout out, had a new Twitch follower tonight. So shout out to you. And also, obviously, Patriotic Warrior was a new subscriber because I set my channel to subs only, but probably unsubscribed after the call-out, but who gives a fuck? Like, share, subscribe. Try to spread the stream to new people. And there's going to be plenty more to cover on Thursday night, including Deborah Messing, more Betty Milder, and whatever else new shit comes up within the next couple of days. And with that being also, click the link tree up below in the description to check out all links related to the show. Follow me on Twitter at NugLifeComrade, as you see on the screen. And with that being said, this is Andrew Rochford saying good night and goodbye and good night. And see y'all Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.